Hey, good afternoon. It is January 23rd, I believe. And, I was thinking about a lot of things that is going on in our world today in 2026. I'm not super old. I'm not super young. Somewhere in the middle, I guess. And I was thinking about the time that my sister and I grew up when we were children. And to listen to some people today, supposedly during the time when my sister and I were children, we were growing up in some of the most racial times of America. And I look at our world today and I'm thinking, no, we are not. We were not growing up in the most racially divided time of our nation. My sister and I, at this particular time, I'm going to say it was around 1972, 1973, we were living in DeWardy, a very poor part of the city. And I want to say we were almost the only white family there. Very next to us to the left, as you go out our front door, there was a black family, and I believe they had 7 children, and mother and father. The father, I believe, was an auto mechanic working out of a garage, and the mother, she cleaned houses for a living to support their 7 children. That house was mine and my sister's best friends. We grew up playing with them, and most of the other kids in the neighborhood were black and Mexican. I can only honestly think of one other white family, and they were actually about 3 blocks down. And I'll never forget, it was somewhere around Thanksgiving, I believe. It was cold because we were playing in the house. And normally the parents were home with their children on the weekend. Sunday was the day Mom took all the kids to church. Sometimes the dad would go, but most of the time, no. But this one particular weekend, it was just before Thanksgiving, and then I'm assuming they needed the money, and that's why they agreed to work that weekend. But they were both called in, the dad to the garage, and the mom to clean some extra houses. And, there's no school on Saturday. And so the dad took 2 of the younger boys, but they were old enough to know they better listen. And then the mom took all the girls because they were all old enough to either help or play quietly at whatever house they were cleaning. And so that left the 16-year-old boy with a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy. And he was watching the younger 2 kids. Now, mind you, we didn't have Nintendo and PlayStation and all the distractions of the world today back in those times. And even if they would have been invented, probably we couldn't afford them at those times either. So I don't know exactly what the boy was doing with the 5-year-old downstairs. It was a 2-story house. And maybe he was reading to him, coloring, I don't know. But somehow or another, the 3-year-old went upstairs, and for whatever reason, they had a small can of kerosene lighter fluid underneath the bathroom sink. And the 3-year-old got a hold of a book of matches or a lighter, something. And my sister and I were playing in our bedroom that was right next to this house. And all of a sudden we saw the roof of the house go up, slam back down, and the walls kind of bulge out and go back in. And then the house was just almost immediately engulfed in fire. And my sister and I were screaming. My mom came in. She's like, "What is going on?" She saw the house next door. It was in flames. Well, the 16-year-old was able to get him and the 5-year-old out fairly quickly. And he tried to go back in, but to go get the 3-year-old, but he wasn't even sure. He said, "All I know is my brother's inside." He wasn't sure what part of the house he was in. And so finally my mom said, you can't go back in. Neither of you will come out. I don't know who called the fire department, but apparently somebody did. But it seemed like it took forever for them to get there. We didn't have 911 then, So you had to call the fire department, or maybe you had to call the police department, and they transferred you over. I don't really know how all that worked back then. We didn't have a phone. And eventually the fire department came, and the 5-year-old did get burned a little bit when the brother brought him out. My mom brought him into our house and put him in a tub of cold water. And he was taken to the hospital, and we were told later he did recover. He had mostly some of his burn marks were on his back. I'm gonna guess the floor from upstairs came down and maybe hit him, because it didn't seem like they were in the house real long. But the house was old and kind of rickety or whatever. And so eventually they were able to get to the 3-year-old. But even though they put him in the ambulance and they rushed him to the hospital, he did end up dying. And nobody knew how to get a hold of either one of the parents. And I felt really bad for the 16-year-old, because he was just sitting there in the yard. He didn't know, should he go to the hospital with his 5-year-old brother and the 3-year-old in the ambulance, or should he stay home because if he went to the hospital, his parents wouldn't know where they were. So he ended up staying home, and he just let the ambulance people take his younger siblings. Well, eventually, this was probably around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And by the time the parents came back home, I think the mother came home first. It was a little past dark, so I'm gonna guess after about 5 p.m. And of course, the son told the mother what happened right away. She knew something happened. The house was pretty much completely demolished. And as soon as she found out the 2 younger boys went to the hospital, she ran to some other neighbor's house, and I guess she called a family member or somebody, and they came and picked her up in a car. They didn't have a car. Well, they had a car, but the husband had the car with him at the garage. So somebody came and picked up the mother and she still left the 16-year-old at home, and he waited for the father to come home. And I guess the mother assumed that the father would pick up the 16-year-old boy, and then they would join her at the hospital. Well, the father came home about an hour later, and the son told him what happened to the younger boys, and the younger one probably, the fire department told him the younger one would probably not make it. And the father became extremely angry at the 16-year-old, and he just wailed into him. You would have thought that the 16-year-old planned for this to happen, and I'm sure he did not. And I just felt so sorry for him because he was already feeling bad about what happened to not only his brothers, but his family's house as well. And the father ended up throwing him out of the family, basically. And I don't know what happened to the family after that because they had no home to come home to. My sister had heard later that the dad took, he went and lived with some family member of his and the one other boy that he had taken to work with him. And then the wife took the girls and lived with some members of her family. I'm assuming parents or maybe, siblings or somebody, I don't know. And I always wondered, did the 16-year-old ever reconcile with his dad or his mom? Because I don't know if it was a joint decision from the parents to disown the 16-year-old, but my heart broke for him. My heart broke for the whole family because, and for us, we just lost some of our best friends. Either through death because we played with the 5-year-old, and, because we were only like 7 and 8 years old, or 8 and 9, somewhere in there ourselves. And the majority of the time, most of our friends were either black or Hispanic. And I look at our world today where one felon is running our country, and he is sending ICE to racially profile people and sending them, some of them are even Americans, and sending them to other countries only based on the color of their skin or the language they speak or the accent they possess, and they don't even get a chance to prove anything. So when I saw today that report where ICE arrested a 13-year-old child that was from Brazil, his mother is in the process of an asylum case. I don't know if the child was born here or she brought him here with her. But again, a child was separated from his family, racially profiled. How is a felon, I don't care what his position, I don't even know how he got the position, considering he had like 32 felony charges that he was convicted of. I don't even know how he got voted in. He shouldn't have been able to be allowed to run for president, in my opinion. I'm sure that's in the law as well, but apparently he's above the law. How is it that this one person has so much power of our country and has turned our country so much against one another because of racial profiling. In Luke chapter 6, Luke chapter 6, verse 37. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn others, or it will all come back against you. Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. And in my opinion, ICE is judging people simply because of the color of their skin, because of the accent they have in their speech and the language they speak. Not because they committed a crime, just because of their nationality. Then you look over here in 1 John chapter 3, verse 11. This is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another. We must not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and killed his brother. And why did he kill him? Because Cain had been doing what was evil, and his brother had been doing what was righteous. We're supposed to love one another. We're not supposed to bring hatred. We have people out here robbing people, killing each other with cars, shooting up drugs, trafficking children, trafficking people, selling illegal weapons on the street. And all these people are doing this time to come here for a better life because they're terrorized in their own country. Or here we have jobs, and where they come from, they don't. They're just trying to do like most Americans, survive and raise their family. And we used to be a country that would help one another. Sometimes we do still in a crisis, but that's the only time. That's the only time we choose to not racially profile. That's the only time that it seems to be that we only understand that we are all human beings. We don't need to judge one another because that is God's job. And the ones who are doing evil, the ones who are pouring out hatred, you're going to be the ones judged by God. I pray that you will walk away from your evilness and that you will surrender your life to God and stop being so hateful, stop bringing so much division to our country and our world. Have a blessed day.